Nellys, I think I just sent you a request to join the video. If you can check your notifications. Oh, it says you're unable to join. That's so weird. Hmm. Hmm. View request. Oh, here we go. Okay. Yay!
Yay.
Finally figured it out. Awesome. Okay, so hopefully this one works a little better and that people are tuned in to the stories. And if and if not, then I'm just going to record this and then hopefully transfer the audio file um, to get this in a podcast format. But for everyone that's joining, thank you so much for or welcome to Planty of Friends. This is a new podcast that I'm launching, and it's essentially to help highlight other solopreneurs who are going through this journey of entrepreneurship, owning a small business, and I'm here to interview a lot of amazing, fascinating, awesome solopreneurs like we have here on our first guest. So I want to welcome everyone to Nellys. She is the owner of Coco Loves Gray. Nellys, I don't know if you want to give a quick intro about yourself, but I know everyone's dying to hear more about you.
Like, I'm so exciting, right? I'm like, what should I share
You
about?
are!
Well, like Elise said, I'm Nellys, and I'm the owner of Coco Loves Gray. I make accessories. I started with only earrings, and now I make a bunch of other little things like small little decor items, plant stakes, and I'm expanding a lot with what I'm doing recently. So that's a little bit about me and my business.
That's awesome. I love it. So we met at the Renton at the hatchery, I want to say, back when it was still Sim, Support Your Makers in Renton. And I think it was like friends at first sight. I feel like that way. Because we met and we were like booth neighbors, I want to say. Hey, Rachel. Um,
Thing about
and
I had like pineapple stuff,
yes,
and then that's how.
yeah, definitely. I think being a Hawaii girl, I was like, oh, pineapples. Like that's that's like the first thing I see. Um, So I'm really glad that we were able to connect, and I think just throughout this journey, you've been one of the biggest cheerleaders and just inspirations for myself to go along in this journey of solopreneurship. And I've learned a lot from you, I must say, and I'm just really thankful to have you in my corner. So I just want to say thank you first and foremost.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way about you. As soon as you said something about being an island girl and pineapples, and I had all this pineapple stuff, I was like, okay, we're meant to be friends.
Definitely. Awesome. So just going back into a little bit, let's rewind the tape and go back to, where are you from, Washington?
I've lived here since I was in third grade, but I was born in New York.
Awesome. And were your parents living in New York for a while, or did they come from somewhere else?
My parents are from Nicaragua, so they immigrated here in the like mid to late '80s during the Nicaraguan Civil War. So they came here, and then they lived in California for a little bit. Then they lived in New York, then back to California, and then we've been in Washington since, like I said, third grade for me, so like 20-ish years.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know that Washington has a lot of immigrants and people coming from different places, and so I love learning about other cultures. I must say that I did not know much about Nicaragua, and I still probably don't. But I think just like being friends with you, it's nice to kind of get a sense of like the personality and culture. And I know that you're really fun and bubbly and very like outgoing, especially with the colors that you use in your business. And that's what you like to shine through, right? Is like a lot of that personality side of your business.
Yeah, I think to me, like, there's other people making earrings, and there's other people, probably having similar styles and things to what I do. So it's not necessarily what's going to make me like stand out. But I think if I can also like bring my personality and kind of even my culture and the things that I love into it, I think that's what will really kind of help set me apart as a business. So that's what I try to do.
That's awesome. And so your business, you offer right now a lot of accessories, jewelries, but I know you've also expanded into other areas as well, right?
Yeah, well, I made some plant sticks for you. I wish I had one. I should have got one handy, but
Oh, I
um,
have one. Hold on. Everyone needs to see how awesome her stuff is. Sorry, don't mind the dirt. But this one, oh, it's backwards, but it says Thirsty Bitch, which the plant that it's in right now definitely is.
so those were when I first started, I was doing just earrings, and then those were kind of the first non-earring things I ventured into making because I got a laser printer. So I started being able to cut and engrave different materials. So I loved plants, and I kind of wanted something fun to go along with those, and then it just kind of expanded after that.
That's awesome. So how did you kind of start the journey of entrepreneurship? What sparked you to do what you do?
Um, it started because I have always kind of felt unfulfilled in my jobs, like my regular day jobs that I've had. They're honestly kind of boring jobs. I'm in payroll and there's nothing particularly exciting about that. And so I just felt like I didn't get to express my creativity a lot. And I never really even thought of myself as creative, but I just liked the idea of being able to do something that was mine and kind of figure out if I even had a creative bone in me. And so I just kind of went back and forth on a lot of different ideas for a long time before I thought, you know what, I'll start with something small like earrings because it doesn't take a lot of space, not a lot of like inventory. I was wrong on that, by the way. That's kind of how I just wanted to see if I had some creativity in me.
Yeah, I think we don't realize how much space our stuff actually takes up until we get into it. Like there's so much crap everywhere, I want to say. I think not only in the house, but in like your office space, and I'm speaking for every small business person. I mean, that stuff really piles up.
Yeah, when I started Coco Loves Gray a year and a half or so ago, we lived in an apartment and it was like a 900-ish, maybe a little more than that square foot apartment, 2 bedrooms. Um, and so I was like, I wanted to do like screen printing. I was like, I can't do that because I can't fit screen printing machine stuff in here.
Mm.
But earrings, because, I could just get like a little set of drawers and keep everything in there. And that is how it started. But then it took over the entire apartment and
Mhm.
it was even in the bathroom that we didn't use, we used it as storage space. We had like Cocola's gray stuff in there. So I really underestimated how much space I would take up.
Oh, totally. I know one of my girlfriends, she has like a shapewear line, and it's she like her stuff overflows into the bathroom and like everywhere, and I just can't imagine, well, I guess I can now having a business, but just the storage space and the capacity that people have to have. I don't think it's something that we take into consideration when we start a business, especially like a small business. It's really not small. It's like small scale in terms of volume, but everything else is large.
Yeah, well, Coco, I never would have believed it when I first started Coco Loves Gray, but this business played a huge role in us buying our house last year. Because I told my husband if we were going to continue to grow, and the machine that I wanted was the laser printer, we didn't have it yet, we wouldn't have had anywhere to put it in our apartment. And I said, if we're going to keep growing, we should maybe think about, like, I was thinking renting, a bigger place or whatever.
Hmm.
Then that kind of just developed into buying. And
Yeah.
we bought a house that had enough space for us to like convert our garage eventually into a shop. And for now, we just use one of the spare bedrooms as my office, but that's rapidly expanding into the other spare bedroom as a second office. So
Oh, totally. I would imagine like once your business gets to a certain point, it'll just take over the whole house. Or you'll have to have like a satellite office warehouse, I want to
yeah, that's my Sam won't hear of it for now. So for now, we'll
say.
converting the garage.
Nice. And how does your other half feel about the space that is being taken over?
He doesn't love it. I will say that. Can be very supportive for the most part, but that is the one thing that he has like ground rules that I'm not allowed to like grow into his office, and never wants me to put my stuff in there. And every once in a while, if I leave something in his office, he's like, "Please take this to your office. Like this is my space." Try to be respectful of that because I do tend to invade the rest of the house.
I get it. Yeah, Brian's my boyfriend, he is always saying like, "Hey, I think your stuff is like all over the place." I'm like, I try to corner it in the one corner of the apartment. but it never pans out that way.
It
Yeah.
just like spreading slowly.
Oh, definitely. So going back to when you started your business, was there a critical moment? Like for me, the reason I started it is because I went to a meeting and basically the manager said that she had to miss her kid's first day of school because mommy has to make money. And that for me was like a trigger to jump into the business, whether I was ready or not. Was there a moment for you that you felt that you had to make that fall into the business?
I think the moment for me kind of was like a snowball. Like it'd been like a few things kind of rolling up into something bigger. And then it was just getting to the point where like I didn't like not having control over my own life. And I feel like that's the case when you're working a job where you're not reporting to yourself, which I still am,
Hmm.
but not for long, hopefully. And I just felt like I never got to make decisions that like I wanted to make for myself. I had to run it by somebody else and ask for somebody else's permission. And I started to
Hmm.
think like, I don't want that long term. Like, I don't want that to always be my life. Kind of like you said, I don't know if I want kids, but if I ever did, like, that's kind of sad that I would have to choose to go to work over, doing something with my kids. And
Hmm.
I started thinking, like, what if I did my own thing and eventually I could just report to myself and answer to myself and not have to ask for somebody else's permission to go and do something that I want to do or take a day off or whatever. And so it just kind of became a long term, like thinking long term kind of thing, and
Hmm.
decided that eventually I only want to answer to myself.
Nice. Were there ideas that you were thinking about prior to starting a jewelry accessory business that you had thought about going into?
Thought about everything. I thought about all the things. Screen printing was one of the first things I thought of, like I mentioned.
Hmm.
And I still like that idea a lot, but at the time it was the space basically that just I couldn't pursue that. So then once I thought about that, I was like, well, maybe I can't make like my own clothes, but maybe I could like have a little like boutique, like a mobile boutique, like selling clothes because I love clothes. So that's kind
Hmm.
of always been my train of thought. It's like, no, because that still requires a lot of space and inventory and like stuff that I just don't have the space. And then what else? I think I thought of plants at one point because I love plants, and so I was like, maybe like a little plant thing, maybe something similar to what you're doing, but probably not as well executed. And I was like, but I have to keep them alive in between. Like that's a lot of work. So then I was
Hmm.
like, okay, what other things do I love? And that kind of came down to accessories. I was like, okay, I love like earrings and that kind of stuff, and they seem like something that I could kind of start small and grow from there. And then that's just kind of how the idea grew.
Nice. So how do you come up with your drawings or ideas?
That's a great question. So I can't draw. I can't even draw stick people. Like my stick people are horrendous. I am not an artist, like pen to paper artist. I am not. So I'm an ideas girl, is what I call myself. So I do have a bunch of ideas floating around in my head. I just can't draw. So what I do is I have a little notebook where I'll like sketch my ugly little drawings. And then the magic happens because I can explain to you in great detail what it is that I want. And normally, I'd have to hire like a graphics person or an artist of some kind to help me create that. But what's good about my situation is that Sam, my husband, is that person. He is an artist and a graphic designer. He paints, he sculpts, he does drawings and art. And I mean, he's an artist. He went to art school. And so what I do is draw my little ugly drawings and then great detail, like make bullet points, like I want it to be this size, I want it to look like this, I want it to have this kind of angle, whatever, and then like I talk through exactly what I want, and then he does his thing on the computer because he does everything on Adobe Illustrator.
Okay.
Show it to me and he'll be like, okay, is this what you're thinking? Usually the first three I'm like, nope, not even close. Like, did you read my bullet points? Go through it again, and then finally usually like the fourth or fifth draft of something I'm like, okay, that's good, and then we'll tweak it a little bit and then print a sample one to see if it turns out, and then we go from there.
That's awesome. I love that you're able to work with your other half on it's your business, but it's so neat to see that like the creatives behind the scenes, I guess, because I always wondered, how people come up with all these ideas. Like I can't draw, just like you had said. I can draw stick figures. That's about it. And even thinking about making like canvas prints or like tote bags with drawings on it, it stresses me out because I cannot draw to save my life. So it's so awesome that you're able to work with your husband to create and put your ideas to life. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it is fun because I think it helps him like kind of understand that like I am creative, just not in the same way as him. I can't necessarily like physically create the thing on a piece of paper, but it's all in my head. And if I can just describe it and like, I'm learning a lot about Adobe Illustrator, so hopefully one day like I'll be able to do it myself. I'm not quite there yet, but he's teaching me. Then I can take the ideas that are in my head and actually make them come to life. But for now, I'm just the with the ideas, and then I like speak them, to
Nice.
him, them come to life.
That's awesome. How did you come up with your brand name?
So they're my two cats. I actually have one right here. You can't see her, but she's literally like right next to me, and one who's like pacing back and forth. Coco is one of my cats, and Nacho is my other cat, and he's gray. And Coco Loves Nacho sounds like a Mexican food restaurant, so I had to just scrap that idea, but I wanted to tie them in, so I played around with it a little while until I came up with Coco Loves Gray because Nacho is gray.
That's awesome. And Nacho is the sweetest cat in the world. So cute and so loving. I love that you were able to use, your animals as inspiration for your brand. Because I would have called my brand like Ginger something, but I don't think it resonates with plants very, very well.
I like your, but I think mine was like cute, but like you don't necessarily know that it's like an accessories business. So
Mhm.
I kind of wanted it that way because I wanted to leave it like open ended so that I can grow into it, whatever my business ends up becoming in the future, and
Mhm.
have it kind of be like the main brand.
Nice, nice. So how would you describe your brand? Like colors, personality, how would you describe it to someone who has no idea what you do?
I would describe it as so I think of it as like bright and bubbly and colorful and like fun. I want it to be something that like any person can wear if you feel like wearing earrings. If you don't wear earrings, it can be something that you put on your little plant, like the thing that you showed, just to add something fun to your day. Like whenever you look at that plant, you might giggle to yourself because it's kind of funny. So that's just kind of the goal for me, is to just add like a little pop of color or a little pop of fun to everybody's day with the stuff that I make.
Yeah, and your stuff is so colorful. I love wearing it like the pineapple earrings. I love wearing it because not only does it make other people smile and laugh, and it's like a good conversation starter, but you feel really fun and happy when you wear your jewelry or your scrunchies. Like I wear your scrunchie all the time. I don't have it with me right now, but it's in the bathroom. And I just love that you're able to bring some positivity. That would you say that's what you're kind of going for? On that front.
Yeah, because for me, like, I might be having a bad day, but it's like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna deal with it. But I put on my bright yellow earrings, and it kind of just makes me a little happier when I look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, oh, those are fun, and it just adds the extra fun to your day, whether it's through earrings or through a funny plant stake or whatever.
That's awesome. While you're going through your journey, what would you say are some hurdles or bumps that you kind of came through in the beginning of your process?
I would say I will admit I'm not like a particularly organized person. I'm not a type A at all. So by organized, I mean like not only like my house isn't maybe the most organized house ever, but I'm also just not particularly organized. So like paperwork and just keeping track of all of those kinds of things. So that's the thing. When I first started, I got my business license, but I didn't know what to do beyond that. So I was like, maybe I'll keep track of my expenses or my income, or maybe I won't. Like, we'll see. Uh,
Hmm.
so then after a few months, I was like, okay, maybe I should have been keeping track from the beginning. Now I kind of have to backtrack and figure out like a good system for this, and
Hmm.
backtrack a few months and try to figure out how to organize all of that. So I would say, like, if I could go back and tell myself to do something, it would be to understand how to maybe not bookkeep, but at the very least keep track of like my expenses and my income and all that kind of stuff, so I can have at least a closer idea of, what's going on before
Yeah,
letting it totally out of control.
definitely. I know you wear so many hats as a solopreneur. Is there a hat that you absolutely love wearing, and what hat would you get rid of or outsource?
Mm-hmm. I love wearing the hat of like the creative mind behind it, right? I love coming up
Hmm.
with ideas. Like when I go to bed, that's what I'm always thinking about. In fact, yesterday I was thinking about some designs and like I write them down or put them in my phone before I go to bed so I don't forget. I love that. I love having like full control over that. A hat that I would gladly outsource would be photography. I absolutely hate taking pictures of my stuff, and that's why my website isn't as robust. Like I have so many things that I've made that aren't on my website because I hate taking pictures.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something that I would gladly outsource, as well as any like tax and bookkeeping related type of
For
thing.
sure. Yeah, I think photography, like, you really have to have that mindset or that creative side to take photos that are great for, online or social media. I don't do my photography either, or if I do, you definitely know which ones I took and which ones my photographer took. Um, because I like that's one thing that I have outsourced is that photography side, but everyone's different, and I think photography definitely can make or break, the sale of a product. So I totally get it.
I don't have the patience for it. Like I'll take one picture and I'm like, if it doesn't turn out good, I'm like, I give up. I tried too hard, but I only took one picture, so I didn't actually try that hard. I'm not super patient. I don't want to find the right light. I don't want to figure out how to like lay it properly. I'm just like, forget it. Then I'm not gonna post it because it's not worth it.
Yeah. Actually it's funny that you said that. So I listened to this, was it Clubhouse or Instagram? I forget. It was something that Lisa from the Golden Brand Company, she was talking about perfectionism. That was like the topic of the room. And she had said that, for perfectionists, if we can't get something right the first time or the first couple times, that we kind of just ignore it or move on. Like for me, that's definitely what I do. I don't know if that's something that you might do or
Yeah, 100%. I've never really thought of myself as a perfectionist, but in some ways I am because I very much need things to be like a specific way and I like have to have them be that way. But if they're not that way after me trying like once or twice and I'm done with it and I'm like moving on to the next thing that I know I can get to be the way that
Mhm.
I want it to be kind of thing. So that's why I'd rather just have somebody else do certain things, especially the things that frustrate me and I know that I'm just going to give up.
Definitely. Are there aspects of the business that you do outsource? Like for me, I outsource photography, I outsource my social media planning, and I have a virtual assistant, and I outsource some production. Is there anything that you outsource other than, like the graphic design part?
No, I mean my taxes, but other than that, I just worked with a photographer for the first time like last month, and it was because she needed some items for a rebrand that she was doing, so it wasn't like I didn't necessarily go to her for that. So I was like, sure, you can use some of my stuff. And then once I got her pictures, I was like, oh boy, like I never want to take my own pictures again. So I'm in the process of figuring out how she and I can work together more long term. But no, other than that, I 100% do it myself, and I'm ready to let go of some of the things. So stay tuned and see what I do first.
It's actually shocking how much of a weight off your shoulders comes with outsourcing or um, you know, assigning tasks to other people, even though it could be like an upfront expense, like a per month or however per contract, it's so rewarding, or it's really nice to not have that um like issue, I guess, that's stuck there that you're having to accomplish, and just give it to somebody else to do.
Yeah, after you told me like all the different people that you outsource to, I'm like, I should get smart like Elise and figure out how to find all these people for me. I think where I'm gonna start is where some kind of production kind of assistant type of thing once I am doing it full time, because right now it just I don't know how I'd ever have the time to like tell another person what I need to do when I'm also working a full time job. But once I'm not, I'm going to have somebody kind of come and learn some of the things and then do them on their own. So that I think might be the first thing that I outsource, and then somebody to I don't know if it would be the same person or a different person, somebody to help me at events so that I don't have to be trying to be at 15 different places at once because that's really hard.
Yeah, definitely. I think some good ways to find it, and I'm sure you have sources as well as like I just reached out on Instagram, like on stories, or I found people on Fiverr, is another good resource. That's where I found Lisa, who did my photography, and then she ended up being my brand coach. And then just like friends of friends, people always know somebody who will help you in whatever area you need to. Um, yeah, so those are all good resources. But I got you. We'll figure it. Well, I'll help you out. That's some of that stuff. Um, do you do any advertising for your business, like paid advertising?
I did one time because Instagram said like I had a $10 credit or something, but that's the extent to which I've done that.
Nice. And do you think that it was helpful, or did you not see the results that you needed? I'm always curious to see how other small business owners navigate the paid advertising side.
To be honest, I don't think I saw much. I don't know if I didn't set the right like parameters for it or what, because I'd never done it, so I didn't really know what to do. I feel like all my growth I've got myself, through, I don't know, mostly Instagram. So maybe it's helpful if utilized correctly, but I don't know if I know how to utilize it correctly yet.
Got it. Yeah, it's a funny thing to think about, like the paid advertising route. Like my background is in paid advertising, but it's more for like big brands, CPG companies, and it's it's like a plus. It's like beneficial, but also stressful because you're having to give up so much money to hopefully see the results that you need, and it can be tricky to navigate through. So I totally hear you on that.
To learn about though, for sure.
Definitely. Um, so I know you're based in Renton. How do you, and just being a small business owner in Washington, there are so many makers out there. How do you navigate through that kind of uh, landscape of, do you plug into certain community events? Do you plug in, like, how do you kind of go through the muck of everything?
I think when I was first starting and like I didn't know anybody and I just kind of started, following local hashtags or that kind of thing to find people. And then at first I was trying and doing everything, like just trying to find kind of where my niche was or my group might be. So I was just doing like any event I could find and trying to just network with whomever. Um, After a few months, I kind of started making more relationships with people and then started finding out about more people and more people or more events and more networking. And then I think I kind of just found like a core group of people that like kind of have the same values as me and my business, even if they don't do the same, type of business, but just same values, same kind of mindset. Um, and that kind of became the people that I would network with. And then I think everything just is word of mouth. A friend would tell a friend about me or vice versa, and then they'd become somebody that I was talking to. And I think most of the people I ended up meeting were either through Instagram random connections or like I met you at one of our events. And now I feel like I kind of know people across the Washington area.
Mhm.
Um, and I can say like, oh, I have this friend in, Olympia that does this or that, and connect them somehow and collaborate with them somehow. So I've just been able to kind of grow organically and meet people through Instagram of all places. So that's been nice.
That's awesome. Instagram has been such a great platform to have many people come together and like people you wouldn't even have met in person, to help you with your business. So that's awesome. Um, I know you do a lot of wholesale. Is that something when you first started where you would go like shop to shop, or do you reach out on like their email contact us page? I know a lot of people ask me a lot like how to get into the wholesale game. And I think it's different for everyone. So I just would love to get your thoughts because you're so successful at it.
Wholesale is my biggest stream of income. I do more that way than through my website or even in-person events. And I would have never guessed that that's what I would have said even a year ago, but it just kind of happened. And I think what works for me, again, this might not be how it works best for everybody, but what has worked well for me, my first two wholesalers are two shops that I frequent. So I'd been going there even before I ever became wholesale partners with them. And I built relationships with the people at those shops. One of them was a retail like clothing shop, and the other a nursery, a plant nursery of all places. And I built relationships with those people before it ever became a business thing. And I think to me that's what's important. I think when you build that relationship, it'll kind of naturally lend itself to other things. So I wasn't even going in there necessarily with the thought that they were going to become wholesale people. I didn't know what wholesale even really was.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, the retail one, the clothing place, was my first place. And she said, "You make earrings. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?" We already knew each other. So I told her, I showed her some, and she's like, "These are cute. I'd buy a couple from you." And then that's just kind of how that went. And that was my very first one. It was super informal. I just kind of showed her some random ones that I had on hand, and she just bought them.
Nice.
I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And I just was so excited to have just like the one person,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought like I'll be happy for the rest of my life if this is like the only wholesale relationship I have, because it was just exciting that somebody would want to work with me in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the next place, kind of the same thing happened. Like I frequented there and got to know them a little bit, but then I was a little bit bolder and suggested to them. I said, "Hey, I make earrings. I'm local. I think that it could be a good fit in your shop. What do you think?" And they're like, "Sure, let's see." And so I brought them some stuff to look at, and they liked it, and they started carrying it, and they still carry my stuff now, and they order from me regularly. And then from there, it just kind of went. Like, I think it started with that relationship building piece. Just about every location that I have, I either knew somehow before or worked with them for an event or something like that. And that's how the relationship organically started before we got to the point of like wholesaling.
Definitely. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that it's so important to build those relationships and that network before you approach a business. Just like even going into the shop a few times and, checking out their merchandise or finding something that you can relate to and point out in like an introduction email or a contact us page. I know that we both sell into Kent Eso Nursery, and that family is amazing. And I know that that's one of the retailers out of the two that you had alluded or mentioned. Um, and they definitely have that like relationship building approach. Whereas like some businesses don't. Like some businesses they just want you to like give them your wholesale catalog and they can pick whatever they want. But I think it's like better to have that relationship first and then business second.
Like, I like having that relationship, and I like walking in there and greeting them by name, and they know me by name, and just kind of having that relationship. And I will say that it's not all successful. There's been a couple places that I've reached out to kind of via like a contact me page, like you said, or like an email or whatever, and they haven't wanted to work with me, which is okay. But I think I've found that the places that haven't are the places I didn't have those relationships with, but
Mhm.
also they weren't places that like I think wanted to have a relationship. I think they were more like the ones that you said, like just kind of want to look at your wholesale catalog or whatever and just
Mhm.
this. But I think that's okay by me, because I kind of want to be more involved with the ones who do want to build a mutual relationship and like have that familiarity before we jump into doing business.
Definitely. Is there any story that you're willing to share of an introduction that you tried making that went sour? I can
Um,
share.
yeah, I told you about one.
Yeah.
I think one of them was, and I kind of had built a relationship because I went in the store first and like chatted with them and like told them about my stuff. And they were like, "Yeah, bring it in sometime and we'll take a look." And so I went and brought a couple of my stuff that I had at the time, which honestly, it like the stuff I have now is way better, but it was still fine, like whatever. So I brought it in. The owner was there, and she just kind of took one look at me, like she just kind of looked me up and down and like looked at the whatever I'd brought in, and she was like, no, like that's basically did exactly that." And then like she kind of just turned around and went back to doing what she was doing, and I was like, she didn't say said like no, or like no thank you, or I don't know, something like that. It was short, it was not particularly nice.
Mhm.
And like that's fine. Again, I'm okay with rejection. I really, really am. I'm not okay with like not being nice.
Yeah.
Which felt like she kind of wasn't. Like I would have been okay with her saying like, "Oh, this isn't a good fit for the store, but like, hey, maybe we can talk later or whatever." But she just
Mhm.
kind of up and just went like no, and then went back to doing her business. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I left there thinking like, well, I guess that that sucked, and like was hoping that um, other potential like relationships weren't going to be like that. So I was a little bit scared the
Mhm.
next time I went to do like a kind of talk like that, because I was like, oh, what if they're, not super nice and they like,
Yeah.
but thankfully I think that was kind of a one-off experience. I've had other experiences where like it wasn't a good fit, but they were super nice about it and were like,
Mhm.
not a good fit, but let's maybe chat in the future. And I'm always good with that. But yeah, that
Yeah.
was my that was a little bit sour.
No, I get it. I think I haven't had an experience exactly like that, but a lot of the ones that you've said where they'll like kindly dismiss you or kindly pass off. Um, Sometimes that rejection it definitely stings a little bit, but like you said, it probably wasn't meant to be, or they're not ready for you yet. But when you become big and badass, you'll definitely people will be wanting to flock towards you and try to get your stuff because I think your product is amazing. Um, and speaking to like experiences, just there was one I tried to get into a store, my first store, and the girl she was like, well, she's not accepting anything right now, but I love your stuff, and, connect in like 6 months or whatever, and just like constantly complimenting them or messaging them, DMing them, liking their posts, it helped to build that to the point where she was like, okay, great, now she wants to talk to you. So it's really just like trying to connect and being persistent. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I would agree with that. And I think, I almost think of it as courting. Like, I stuff that started off that way that I've never met them. Well, I met them now, but like prior to that, I'd never met them. And like, we just followed each other on Instagram and we would like each other's stuff and, comment on each other's stuff or react to stories or whatever. And like, it was mutual. We were both kind of doing that. So I was like, are we like flirting? Like what's going on? And so after a little while of that, maybe a couple months or something, I got a message from her and she was like, hey, I love all your stuff that you're posting. I love interacting with you on Instagram. Like, would you be down to have some stuff in my store? And then that's how a couple of those relationships were born too.
I love it. I love that analogy. It's so true. Like courting. It's like you're kind of playing with each other, like, oh, hi. And then the
Exactly.
other person's like, hi. And then you're like, hey, you want to check some stuff out? And they're like, not right now. And then like later on, they're like, okay, I'm ready. That's so funny. I love that.
Kind of how it is. It's a little bit like courting or flirting or whatever, but like all virtual and all business.
Yeah. And you actually become like good friends with some of these people afterwards.
Yeah, like the one that I was referring to, she and I are good friends and we chat all the time when we have plans to like get together and meet up sometime. So
That's awesome. Where do you see your business growing in the next year?
Um, that question's so hard because I feel like if you'd asked me that last year, I definitely would not have said where I'm at right now.
Mhm.
So I guess in that frame of mind, like thinking big, I'm at about 15 retailers or so partners that I work with, and I would ideally like to be at 50. That's my big number. I don't know if I can make such a big jump in a year, but hey, we'll see. And I want more than like expanding my variety. So I'm in like boutiques and nurseries and that kind of stuff, but I want to grow the kind of store that I'm in and across the country. So I want to be able to kind of grow those relationships and expand what I'm doing. Not that I love my partners, like I absolutely love all of them, but I want to love more of them and welcome more of them into the family. So that's one of my biggest goals. And I think another goal would be to have like an industrial sized laser printer. Now I have like a smaller one, but I think eventually I'm going to need to scale up and have a much bigger one. So that's a big goal of mine.
That's awesome. You will definitely hit 50. I'm putting that out in the universe that you will hit 50, especially since like your hustle game is like so on point. I think yeah, you'll definitely get there. And I was curious, how do you navigate having a business and also having a full-time job?
Um, barely, barely. So I don't know because I don't know anything different at this point. That's just what I've been doing, and that's all I know. I think I've mentioned that I was actually going to go full time with Coco Lives Great here in August, but the universe had different plans for me. So I'm doing a job that will take me a few more months. That will take that path a few more months longer than I initially planned, but I'm okay with it because I think that's kind of where I'm meant to be right now. Uh, so I think how I make it work is I sleep very little. I snack a whole lot. I complain a whole lot. And I don't know, I just have to get through it. And it's not like, oh, woe is me, like what a struggle. I know what it entails and I do it because I love it. And I have a dream and I have goals in mind that I know that I have to reach. And I'm not going to reach it by just like not doing anything. So if I have to hustle a little harder now to reach my goals later, then that's what I got to do.
That's awesome. I think that we're always trying to have like a work-life balance, right? But I I think we had talked about this. There's no such thing as a work-life balance, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. And so you just have to kind of scrape at the bare bones of things and get by until you reach a certain point or milestone, and then you can celebrate that and then hustle into the next one.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. I had a very lofty goal that I needed to accomplish before the end of the year. I started in February-ish or so of this year, and my goal was to be done in August, 6 months, um, to pay off all my debt that I had. Not the housing, that obviously it would be hard to do, but
Mhm.
other than that, I wanted to pay off all of my consumer and student debt, and that was my goal. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I don't care if I never sleep. I don't care if I have no life. I will do whatever it takes because it's short term. And happy to announce that I have just about completed that goal. Just need another month or so. And I didn't think I could do it, and I cried a lot, and definitely like wasn't the funnest 6 months I've ever had, but it was a big learning period and I guess a time of proving to myself that I can do what I set my mind to, even if it's hard, even if it means a lot of work. And I'm happy to report that I'm on the other end of it and almost on the other end of it. And now I'm like, okay, I can take a little bit of a breath. That's why I've been taking a break from events and things like that,
Mhm.
as I regroup and kind of think of what my next goal is.
That's amazing. I am so happy for you. Being out of debt is literally one of the biggest goals that I have. And so, like, hats off to you. And I know, like, there's a couple people who said, "Oh my gosh, yay, clap, clap, clap." That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. That's an awesome accomplishment.
Thank you. It's been, like I said, probably the biggest 6 months of learning I've ever had, the most exhausting 6 months I've ever had, but also the most like, I don't know, the most badass I've probably ever felt in my life because I'm like, I did this. Like I said I was going to do it. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to, but guess what? I did it, and now I know I can do all sorts of other things.
Yes, absolutely. It's all about just kind of like chopping at little, like ticking off little things here and there, and then getting to that goal that you want. So, oh, hey, Lindsay. Yes, she said, woohoo, debt free. Agreed. 100%.
It's great.
Um, yeah, for sure. Well, I feel like that goes into my next question, but I'm gonna have a segment where it's, what's an awesome sauce moment? Because I say that all the time, awesome sauce, and I wanted to incorporate it into the podcast. So outside of being, debt free almost, what is an awesome sauce moment that you've had while going through this journey of being a business owner?
Um, there's so many of them. It's hard to say, but I think I'm trying to think. I think one of them, okay, I was at an event that I did a couple months ago, and there was a lady who walked in and she was wearing my earrings, and I spotted her from across the room because I always do. I'm always looking around to see if like somebody's wearing my earrings, and I didn't recognize her. I knew the earrings were mine. And she came over to my table and she's like, I follow you on Instagram and I've been following you for like, however long. I bought these earrings from your website and I've like gone to your other events. I didn't really remember her because there's so many people, but like when she told me her handle, I remembered her. She's like, I went to this other event and I knew you were going to be here, so I wanted to come see you. And I just was like, me? Like, why would you want to come see me? What's so exciting? And like, it was just so cool. Like, she's like, I have all these earrings. She was showing me like the pictures of the earrings she had bought, and she bought some more there. And I felt like maybe a little bit like a celebrity for a minute. I was like, oh, she recognizes me, she follows me, she buys my stuff. And it was just like super humbling, but also super exciting because like, it's me. It's just little old me. Like, I don't think of myself as being that exciting, but it was just like super exciting to feel like somebody loved the stuff that I was making and it made them happy, which was my goal. So that was an awesome sauce moment.
That's awesome. Yes, awesome sauce for the win. I know we're wrapping up a little bit, but is there a piece of advice that you would give to other small business owners or potential small business owners out there?
Yeah, I think two separate pieces of advice to potential business owners, ones who are maybe thinking about it but haven't made the leap yet. I would say do it. Just do it. Like, I had no idea what F I was doing when I started. Like, I was like, I don't know, I'm just going to do something. And still don't a lot of the time, but I went for it. And I don't regret that for a second. And I am proud of myself for just kind of believing in myself and putting myself out there. I think for current business owners, I would say do, I know it's like we're selling to people, but do what makes you happy, because if you are not making the things that make you happy, the things that you like, the things that are, true of you and of your brand and represent you, that shows, I think, and it doesn't make for an authentic experience with your brand or your items or your whatever. And I think, like I said earlier in the podcast, it's not about my earrings necessarily. Like, I'm not the only one out there making them, but I think it's about me and what I show, and like my personality shows through in my brand. And I just try to stay very real and very true to me and very true to my brand. And I think that's what makes me me. I think that's what my Coco loves gray. Coco loves gray. And that's what helps me stand apart, I think.
That's amazing. I love that piece. Those two pieces of advice. It's definitely just like jump head first into whatever you want to do. And you don't have to ask permission. You don't have to have like rules and these guidelines that you need. I mean, obviously be moral and, don't break the law, but like, I think a lot of people, small business or potential small business owners, they are hesitant to jump into to starting a business because it's so hard or it's daunting, I guess. But I feel like most small business owners, they kind of just fall into it, or they're just like, F it, we're just gonna do it and see what happens. So I love that piece of advice that you gave it. It's definitely on par with how I feel too.
Yeah, somebody once said to me, do it scared. And yeah, you don't have to have it all figured out. And you can be scared, and you might still be scared. Sometimes I am, but just do it.
That's awesome. Um, well, is there any like events that we can see you in or anything exciting that's coming up that you want to plug?
I'll be at Urban Craft Uprising Tacoma Summerfest on August 8th. August 8th, yeah. And I think that's the only one I have for sure on my calendar. I have a couple others scheduled, but if you guys are near Tacoma and the Reston area, definitely come. I know CL, I see her commenting there. She's going to be there. So come. That will be my first event since May because I've been taking a break. So I think it'll be really fun.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Nellys. I mean, you are definitely the first person I wanted to interview, obviously because our names rhyme and that's badass. But I just love what you're doing and love what you're putting out there into the world. And I just want to tell you, like, keep on doing what you're doing because obviously it is working. And yeah, just thank you for being my first guest. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but hopefully it'll be on YouTube Live next time, but we'll see. But thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
For having me.
Thank you. All right, bye everyone. Thanks for joining.